Hello everybody, this is Chase Oliver 68 here, bringing you UFC Live on Versus number 6. Recapping results. The show took place in the nation's capital, the United States, Washington, D.C. So, let's get on to it. The first fight of the night, we had Danzig, Ultimate Fighter winner, versus Matt Wiman in a rematch. Earlier on, their first fight, Matt Wiman got Danzig in a choke. And apparently Danzig wasn't in trouble for submission, but the referee thought he was out, so it's kind of controversial in a way. And so Danzig was really looking for a huge revenge on this fight. He really wanted to get revenge for that loss. And Matt Wiman, always an impressive talent. He wanted to, show that, hey, it wasn't a fluke. I beat him. I can do it again. And boy, what an opening fight this is. This is a good way to start off a free UFC show with a fight like this. Danzig and Matt Wiman, went at it, showed off all their skills, wrestling and whatnot. Matt Wiman hitting those vicious elbows on top. Everything just seemed to go right for both of these men, but the only one winner. Looking at this fight, it was hard to score who I thought won each round. Round 1, I gave it to Wiman. Danzig, I gave round 2, and then ultimately I gave it to Wiman in round 3. And no surprise, the judges kind of agreed with what I was thinking in my head. As Wiman got the win, fans were booing, but to me, I thought he deserved to win. No doubt Matt Danzig could have walked out the winner. Overall, the crowd would have been booing whoever else won because, their fighter didn't win. But it was a great, entertaining fight. The crowd was into it. Great way to kick off the show. So, to me, ultimate job. Matt Wiman wins by unanimous decision. Next up, we have Anthony Rumble Johnson, the huge 170, taking on Charles Brennemen, who defeated Rick Story. If you guys do not remember, Rick Story was this up-and-coming kid. He had like this amazing win over top welterweight contender Thiago Alves, and everyone's all like, oh, Thiago Alves, he was a former challenger to the champion GSP. He's some guy that could really do some damage to this kid. Rick Story ended up beating Thiago Alves, and everyone was like, oh my god, this kid's for real. Then Charles Brennemen kind of, took it to Rick Story, won that fight, and then he gets his chance against Anthony Rumble Johnson. And before this fight even began, Anthony Rumble Johnson, in my mind, was going to crush this kid. Not by, TKO or anything. I didn't think he would end in knockout, but I knew he was going to outclass this kid, and it was showing. Charles Brennemen just looked like a fish out of water. Anthony Rumble Johnson just seemed to have his way. He went to takedown. And then at the end of the fight, where Anthony Rumble Johnson hit this head kick, it was a premature stop. I agree with that. But hell, if we let this fight continue on even more, Anthony Rumble Johnson would have just kept on doing damage to his kid, and it would have looked really, really bad on Charles Brennemen's stock. So to be honest, I know he's pissed. I get it. It was a premature stop. But really, if you were watching that beginning of that fight, and you were just seeing how bad Charles Brennemen was looking against Anthony Rumble Johnson besides one escape, it was not pretty. And Charles Brennemen needs a lot of work if he's ready for those mid-level competitions, especially against Anthony Rumble Johnson. So Anthony Rumble Johnson wins in TKO. I bet you Dana White's going to probably throw in a rematch of this, saying like it was controversial in 2 or 3 years maybe. Who knows if Brenneman's still going to be around, or Johnson's going to be around for that matter. But Anthony Johnson wins. No complaints here. The stoppage was premature, but to be honest, Charles Brennemen was just like a fish out of water, like I'm going to say again. Next up, we've had a heavyweight bout between Skyscraper Stefan Struve, he's tall as fuck, he's 6'11", versus HD Pat Barry. I don't know what the HD stands for. I think it's high definition, I don't know. But Pat Barry and Stefan Struve, opening round was pretty terrible. Fans were not excited for this opening round. They were actually booing because they were pissed off the lack of action, because they know, everyone who knows Pat Barry knows this guy, he loves action. He goes boom, 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 boom. He is ready for a fight. And Stefan Struve, they know he's a counterpuncher, but none of these two seem to want to interact. Pat Barry's like, oh, fuck this, I'm hearing booing. Start to interact. Then we get into the second round. And really, the second round was a good round. I enjoyed this round a lot. And then Pat Barry, it looked like he was in control on top. Stefan Struve goes in for a triangle choke, gets it, and then Pat Barry's like, I'm going to go Rampage Jackson on the shit. Lifts him up for a Rampage bomb. Hits it. Everyone's all screaming because they're like, holy fuck, power bomb. I was all freaking out. And then turns out Stefan Struve landed right on his elbow perfectly. Great technique. Kept in the triangle. Tied in even more. And Pat Barry tapped out. Whew. That's kind of embarrassing if you ask me. Skyscraper won that fight by via submission in the second round. Skyscraper Struve, he's showing his talent. He's showing that he has great submissions. Granted, it is against a Pat Barry, but only the future is bright for this young Skyscraper. And Pat Barry, as long as he keeps entertaining the fans, especially after that shit, you think Dana White's gonna throw him away? No. Now it's time to talk about the main event. Now, many people are probably wondering, why was this title fight free on TV? Why was it not promoted on pay-per-view? Because if you guys did not know, the main event for this show was the UFC Bantamweight Championship between Bantamweight champion Dominick Cruz and challenger Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. I'll explain more into detail after I talk about the fight, why this wasn't a UFC title fight, so people don't get bored and get turned off by this video. And after I'm done explaining my thoughts on the fight, can go hear my reasoning. But basically this. The fight was pretty good. Demetrius Johnson caught Dominick Cruz off guard because Demetrius Johnson's just as fast as Dominick Cruz. They were hyping up this whole Demetrius Johnson's as fast as Cruz, and Johnson was going at it. He was throwing wild shots. Cruz was getting tired, and Cruz ultimately took him down with the wrestling. Cruz looked great in the wrestling department. He was going for these suplexes, almost finished him off in the third round. He was looking great. He was taking control of the wrestling. Demetrius Johnson, he probably rarely trains in wrestling, which is kind of stupid. I think he was probably thinking, oh, I'm not going to get a wrestling Dominick Cruz. I'm going to get the Dominick Cruz that fought Uriah Faber, standing and mostly doing this head movement. And Demetrius Johnson, if Dominick Cruz had no wrestling background whatsoever, this would have been a different fight. But since Dominick Cruz is so versatile and he is a champion for a reason, because he is versatile, he doesn't have one style of moves, Dominick Cruz dominated. And there was no doubt about that. Dominick Cruz had this fight. Despite the moments that Demetrius Johnson looked like he had Cruz hurt, none of those punches were effective. Demetrius was running at him full force, wasn't loading up a shot. He went for unnecessary head kicks. He barely looked impressive on the ground for defense. Didn't even try to throw in a guillotine every once in a while. So pretty much Dominick Cruz walked away with a good victory. He didn't look too impressive, but he looked fine enough. He showed off he can wrestle. So someone can't think in his mind, oh, this guy can only stand up. I'll just try to tire him out. And then not forget about his wrestling. Now Dominick Cruz has a lot of people looking at him saying he can also wrestle besides stand up. That's going to be a hard challenge. And the only guy I can really see being Dominick Cruz, if he actually went the pace as Demetrius Johnson, if he learned how to use the pace of Demetrius Johnson, got conditioned enough, is Uriah Faber. The reason why I say this is Faber is a perfect guy. His wrestling, if not better, as Dominick Cruz. It's almost the same level, if not better. And he is speedy, but he just needs to work on that speed. And hell, that would be a title fight I would throw $50 for to watch on TV. Now, I'm done talking about the fight. Dominick Cruz, he retained his title, no shit there. Unanimous decision. Obvious win for Dominick Cruz. Now, this is the reason why this was not a UFC number. It wasn't on a triple-digit number. It wasn't on pay-per-view. The reason being is this. Dominick Cruz, and this is not an insult to Cruz. This is basically truth. Dominick Cruz is not a drawing champion. He's not a champion where you can sell him on the market and say he's a draw. He's in the bantamweight division, and bantamweight's 135. Many people think, oh, these guys are just little midgets that fight, and they don't have any power because they're so small. That's what many people think. And Dominick Cruz, as champion for the UFC, just UFC alone, has not really shown he has knockout power. No shows that he can finish, and doesn't look super duper impressive to the point where it's like you want to waste $50 to buy a pay-per-view featuring Dominick Cruz as your bantamweight champion. See, the thing is, Dominick Cruz, is he a hell of a fighter? I think he's a good fighter. I think he's a great fighter. He knows how to fight well. He has great game plans. He has good speed. He knows how to throw his opponents off. Dominick Cruz is a great champion. But I'm a hardcore MMA fan. I'm not a casual. A casual, they look at fighters that impress them. And, the UFC now, since they're on Fox, since they're going to be promoting shit on Fox, they're going to be promoting more mainstream. Who would you rather fight? It's like the question of, would you rather watch Manny Pacquiao TKO someone in the second round and feel good because you got to see a vicious knockout, or would you rather watch Floyd Mayweather tool with someone for 12 rounds? Most casual fans probably would say, I would rather see the knockout. And that's the thing. If you're going to be on this mainstream show, like Fox or a mainstream channel like Fox. You want to promote it where all your champions are these dominant forces. No one can get through them. You got knockout. Hell, you can just show GSP's knockdown on John Fitch one fight. You can show some of his past fights to show off how dominant he was back then. You know, GSP has a lot of footage you can use. Anderson Silva, you definitely have fucking shitload of footage. Frankie Edgar, you can show his footage of, and Frankie Edgar made a name on himself with Gray Maynard, the whole Rocky Balboa type sensation. You know, just getting his ass kicked and then coming back, taking it to a draw. It was a crazy fight. John Jones, need I say more about John Jones? I just talked about him last week in a video, talking about how dominant he looks. You look at Jose Aldo, and Jose Aldo's just a bad motherfucker. You only need to show that one footage that he did to Kump Swanson, the double knees to the face, and bam, that was it. But Dominick Cruz, do you have a highlight tape besides him rocking Faber that could show up to the fans? I mean, yeah, you can throw in the suplex and be like, hey, that's our bantamweight champion. But does he have a fight where it's like someone's getting choked out? It's like, and it's like, it is all over. Dominick Cruz has finished Demetrius Johnson. And then Cruz does his little shit. No, he doesn't have that. And that's why. No one's going to buy a pay-per-view if they know this guy won't finish fights. They want to see someone to finish fights. It's like Lesnar, he can finish fights when he was champion. Cain Velasquez can. But then again, they're heavyweights. But the thing is, to draw as a champion, you need, and I mean you need, to finish fights. You need to be someone on a mainstream draw. GSP, yeah, he doesn't finish fights, but what does he do to interest people? GSP has some people who order pay-per-views just to see him lose. GSP has some undercards that look good, so that way you can buy that, and maybe hopefully the GSP fight will be good. You know, he has all this aura to him to make it where you don't really think about that. But Dominick Cruz, who literally just entered the UFC like last year, has only fought once in it against Uriah Faber, didn't finish Uriah Faber. That card only sells because Uriah Faber is literally, and I'm a Uriah Faber fan, I'm going to admit this, one of the most overrated superstars in MMA. Everyone loves Uriah Faber. Everyone thinks Uriah Faber is great. They love this kid. While Dominick Cruz, on the other hand, is just some prick. And Uriah Faber made it known that he's a prick. You know, people look at Uriah Faber as a good guy in this term, and look at Dominick Cruz as a dick. And not after that, even at the end of the fight, when Dominick Cruz was doing his post-fight interview, there was not that many cheers compared to Demetrius Mighty Mouse, who was fighting his balls out, trying to escape those takedowns, escape the submission attempt, who was getting cheered. And that's the thing. Dominick Cruz cannot draw money for the UFC, and that's why. You do not want to put him on pay-per-view, and yeah, people will buy the pay-per-view. He will get those fans. He will get bars buying the pay-per-view. But Dana White does not want to go look up how much his buy rates got from Dominick Cruz as champion and look to see 250,000 buys. He wants to see this man making 350,000 buys, maybe 500,000 buys. 500,000 buys, I mean. He wants big buys from this guy. And he knew this fight, this main event fight, would not sell. That's all I'm getting at here. Nothing against Dominick Cruz. Fine champion. Definitely a star in the making. Definitely a guy to watch out for. But Dominick Cruz needs to realize, if he wants to be a household name in the UFC, if he wants to be a draw and not the guy people forget as champion, like, how many people knew there was a bantamweight championship after tonight? How many people knew who was a bantamweight champion before July 2nd when he fought Uriah Faber? I bet many people did not know there was Dominick Cruz as bantamweight champion. So that's about it for this video. If you guys stay this long to hear my explanation about Dominick Cruz and talk about why this fight wasn't featured on TV, why it wasn't featured on a pay-per-view, you can understand why. And until Dominick Cruz finishes the fight and doesn't have to fight someone bigger than him, he will always be a guy that will either defend his title free on TV every once in a while, or always be a guy that fights on a card but has a bigger champion ahead of him. Because the only way he's going to sell pay-per-views is if he got a guy named Uriah Faber, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people, after seeing this fight tonight, depending on the ratings, would love to see Demetrius Johnson fight this guy, because that bantamweight division has no one of interest besides those two. Maybe Miguel Ángel Torres if he gets his shit right. But anyways, I am Chase Oliver 68. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys liked it, subscribe up above, comment down below, like or dislike this video. I haven't done that in a long time. Follow me on Twitter, Chase Oliver 68. Add me on Skype, Chase Oliver 68. This is